Welcome. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of contractual capacity. Have you ever wondered who can legally enter into a contract and who can't? Understanding contractual capacity is essential, whether you're signing a lease, buying a car, or starting a business. In this video, we'll break down the main requirements for a valid contract, explore the different categories of people and their ability to contract, and look at real-life examples and case studies. By the end, you'll know exactly what it means to have contractual capacity and why it matters in everyday life. Let's get started by outlining the basic requirements for a valid contract. For a contract to be legally binding, several requirements must be met. First, both parties must have contractual capacity. There must also be agreement, legality, possibility of performance, proper formalities, and certainty. If any of these elements are missing, the contract may be void or voidable. This means that the contract either never existed in the eyes of the law or can be set aside by one of the parties. Understanding these requirements helps protect your rights and ensures that your agreements are enforceable. Next, let's focus on the first requirement, contractual capacity. Contractual capacity refers to the legal ability of a person to enter into a binding contract. Not everyone has this capacity. Certain groups, such as minors, people who are mentally incapacitated, and insolvents, may have limited or no capacity to contract. The law sets these boundaries to protect vulnerable individuals from being taken advantage of. For example, a child cannot be expected to understand the consequences of a complex agreement. Let's explore how contractual capacity differs for various groups, starting with minors. Minors, defined as individuals under 18 years old, generally have limited contractual capacity. The law recognizes that young people may lack the judgment needed to make binding agreements. However, there are important distinctions. Children under 7 years old, infants, have no contractual capacity at all, while those aged 7 to 18 pupilless can contract, but only with the assistance of a guardian. Once a minor turns 18 or gets married, they are considered a major and gain full contractual capacity. Emancipated minors who are legally freed from parental control also have full capacity. Let's look at how guardianship plays a role. Guardianship is the legal responsibility to care for a minor and manage their affairs. Guardians must act in the best interests of the child, including when assisting with contracts. For most contracts, the consent of one guardian is enough, but for major decisions like marriage, adoption, or selling property, both guardians must agree. If a minor enters into a contract without proper assistance, the contract is usually voidable. This means the minor can choose to honor or reject it. Let's see what happens when a minor enters into a contract with or without a guardian's help. When a minor aged 7 to 18 enters into a contract with the assistance of a guardian, the contract is valid and binding on the minor, but not on the guardian personally. If the contract turns out to be unfair or burdensome, the minor can apply to court for relief, such as restitutio in integrum, which allows them to set aside the contract and return what was received. On the other hand, if a minor enters into a contract without a guardian's help, the contract is not binding on the minor, but the other party may be left without a remedy. This protects minors from exploitation, but can create challenges for those contracting with them. Let's bring these principles to life with a real-world example. Chego Fatso, a 17-year-old entrepreneur, buys a car with their parents' consent. When business slows down, Chego Fatso struggles to pay for the car. Because this was an assisted contract, Chego Fatso is legally bound unless they can show the contract is burdensome and apply for restitutio in integrum. Their parents, however, are not liable for the debt, as they are not parties to the contract. This case highlights how the law balances protection for minors with fairness to other parties. Marriage can affect a person's contractual capacity. In South Africa, couples can marry in or out of community of property, with or without accrual. In community of property, both spouses share a joint estate and have equal contractual capacity, but some contracts require both spouses' consent. Out of community of property, each spouse manages their own assets and liabilities independently. Civil unions and African customary marriages have similar principles, with some unique rules for polygynous marriages. Understanding your marriage regime is crucial for managing contracts and protecting your interests. People who are mentally incapacitated at the time of contracting generally lack contractual capacity. This includes those suffering from mental illness or severe intoxication. Contracts entered into by such persons are usually void, as they cannot understand or appreciate the consequences of their actions. However, if a mentally ill person has moments of lucidity, contracts made during those times may be valid. The law aims to protect vulnerable individuals while ensuring fairness for all parties involved. When a person is declared insolvent, their contractual capacity becomes limited. Their estate is managed by a trustee, and they cannot enter into certain contracts without the trustee's consent. For example, they cannot sell assets or incur new debts that would further reduce the estate's value. If they do, those contracts are voidable at the trustee's discretion. Insolvency is a serious legal status with wide-ranging consequences, so it's important to manage your finances carefully to avoid these restrictions. Let's recap what we've learned. Contractual capacity is a fundamental requirement for valid contracts. Minors, mentally incapacitated persons, and insolvents have limited or no capacity to contract, with specific rules to protect them and those who deal with them. Marriage regimes also influence contractual capacity, especially regarding joint or separate property. Always check the legal status of the parties before entering into a contract. If you're unsure, seek legal advice to avoid costly mistakes. In our final scene, we'll answer some common questions and provide practical tips. To wrap up, let's tackle a few practical questions. What should you do if you're asked to contract with a minor? Always check for guardian consent. What if you suspect someone is mentally incapacitated or insolvent? Proceed with caution and seek legal advice. Remember, contractual capacity protects both parties and ensures fairness in agreements. Thanks for joining us on this journey through contractual capacity. Stay informed, protect your rights, and contract with confidence.